generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking about the new movie of this weekend, Lisa Frankenstein. Arguably, probably one of the more popular movies for Valentine's Day weekend. I know that's coming up in a couple days, but you know it's a love story, so it's pretty big here for the holiday. We're gonna go ahead and tell you some non-spoiler stuff here in the very beginning and give our opinions about the movie and give it a rating, and then we will go ahead and talk about some spoilers, telling you about the whole movie after all that stuff. So I will go on to say that I had zero expectations for this movie. It really wasn't a movie that, you know, I was gotta go see that kind of a thing. But
I
I
feel like
will.
the trailer gives a lot of it away. Like the trailer is very clear on what kind of movie this is, being the like cheesy Valentine's Day type love story.
I feel like it gives that vibe, but I I didn't know what to expect from the movie at all, as far as plot. Um, so just kind of going through, you know, what my impressions were from it. It wasn't the greatest movie. I wouldn't say that I would watch it again, but I would also say on the flip side of that, it was the kind of movie where there was at least enough interest to want to kind of know what happens next. Just because there's a couple of characters in here where you're kind of like, man, they're really a mean person. Why would they say something like that? So you're kind of glued to what's that character gonna do next? And then Lisa and the creature here, they do something ridiculous, and you're like, oh my goodness, where's that gonna go next? Just because I didn't pick up any of that kind of stuff from the trailer. Again, we'll talk more about that in the spoilers. But there's a sequence of things that happen with Lisa and the creature that I thought was ridiculous and unexpected. Uh, but it's not that bad of a movie if you go and see it one time. I would recommend it more for streaming, but if you want to go see it for or with your honey or something for Valentine's Day, it's not that bad. Could have been worse. Definitely could have been worse. Like I've seen worse movies. I would go see this over uh the Flower Moon murder movie
Why
last
don't you
year.
just go ahead and give your rating? Because here you are saying it's not that bad, but it wasn't really for me.
I mean, I guess I can jump to my rating. I'd probably give this movie. Oh no, I want to talk about one more thing that I liked about the movie before I do that.
Okay.
One thing that I actually did really like, and there's some movies that are starting to do this a little more often, I suppose. It did have some animation sequences, and I really liked those. It kind of, and the movie starts, this is not spoilers, the movie starts by kind of giving the creature's background story a little bit. Like there isn't any talking, it's all kind of interpretive from the animation, but the style of the animation I thought was super cool.
It's
And
kind of
it
like Tim Burton style almost, although it was 2D, not like claymation, but like it reminded me of like the kind of creepy like Tim Burton kind of vibes.
Yeah, it also gave me like the Babadook book kind of vibes as well. If you've seen that movie, or there was another one I was thinking of, because Tim Burton definitely it had that feel. I think the newest, like the Blood and Honey Winnie the Pooh movie, used this kind of animation to tell some of the story as well, for that movie. But it's just kind of a more gothic approach to animation that I just thought really fit the movie well. And when with that being the introduction to the movie, I was like, okay, okay, I like the style. So maybe there's more here that I will like. So I did appreciate the animation style that they threw in there to show his side of the story, his background. So I guess for me, Sarah wants me to give my rating now. I'll go ahead and do it. Um, I would probably give this movie. I'm stuck between two numbers. I think I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt because it did keep my attention a little bit more. I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 10. I think it was a little bit below average. Like I said, I wouldn't see it again. It was a ridiculous movie, enough to the point where, like I said, you'd keep watching. But once you've seen it, I really don't think anybody's gonna go back to it. At least not me. Um, so you can discuss your side of the movie. I know you were Sarah was very excited for this movie. I was not too excited. But Sarah was very excited, so I'm curious to hear what your opinion is.
I have been wanting to see this movie for months, ever since I saw the first trailer. Um, there's just something about it. It's weird, right? Because like I'm not super into like Hallmark cheesy romances, but this because it had almost a little bit of like a gothic feel to it, even from the trailer, and kind of you could tell from the main character Lisa, from her wardrobe and kind of, giving Frankenstein vibes. And one of her dresses reminded me, dress and hairstyle at one point reminded me a lot of Bride of Frankenstein. She was kind of emulating her, uh, unintentionally, I guess I'd say. But I don't know. There was just something about the kind of like cheesy romance, but with like a gothic vibe to it that was just really pulling me in. I wasn't expecting it to be like some awesome thriller or anything. It's kind of one of those of you take it for what it is, and it's a cheesy romance.
There is one thing I'd like to say about it. Like, I was picking up on the Bride of Frankenstein type vibes too. And part of me wonders, maybe the people that made this movie really are either big fans or wanted to pay homage to Frankenstein lore a little bit more. And maybe there were things sprinkled throughout this movie that we just didn't pick up on because we haven't seen all the Frankenstein movies. So maybe there's that element to it as well. I don't know because I haven't seen the movies.
Yeah. Um, I'm in the same boat with you as in terms of, I picked up on a few things, but I'm sure there's more that maybe we didn't know about. But there was enough of kind of the love interest. There was enough of kind of a gross factor, to be perfectly honest, because he's coming back from the dead. Some gross stuff's gonna happen. He's been sleeping with the worms for a long time. There's bound to be one that falls out in a gross and unfortunate place.
More ways than one.
Yes. Uh, So, kind of keeping those things in mind and trying to stay spoiler free, I feel like that's about the extent of what I want to say. Uh, I did really appreciate those kind of unexpected, um, horror gothic type spots of like, wow, they went there, like, ugh, like kind of cringy. And so I feel like they did a good job of trying to balance cheesy romance with, you know, stereotypical guy and girl going together, or more masculine energy, something that's not making it less Hallmark like, I guess, and maybe a little bit more of a masculine approach to it, if that makes any sense. Just trying to balance out the two. um I'm at a 6 for this movie. I thought it was a bit above average for me. I would watch it again, but was it like the most amazing thing ever? I wouldn't quite go that far, but I think it was fun.
Yeah. I think that's based on your excitement and like you were looking actually more forward to it. I could see that happening. A 6 out of 10 for you. Um, One other thing that I want to mention before we jump into spoilers is that I think what also really helped this movie was the casting, because one, Cole Sprouse, pretty big in a lot of TV shows as of lately. But also, even me growing up, he was in the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. So there were some things there where that I recognized him in, but other people in our group. I'm pretty sure he's in like Riverdale or something, right?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure he's in Riverdale. That's something that my sister watches, and they want she wanted to go see this movie, and he's in it. Uh, the actress for Lisa Frankenstein being Catherine Newton. She's been in a lot of things as of lately. There are some surprise ones I thought as well. Uh, I'm gonna butcher her last name, but Carla Gugino or Gugino. Uh, I recognized her from Son-in-Law, like when she was much younger, and so I thought it was kind of cool to see her in something again. I haven't seen her in any other things as of late, so that was cool. You said you recognized the dad from the movie, right?
Yes, he had a very familiar face to me, and he had been. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get to him, Carla Gugino, and I apologize if that's not how you say her name, but she was in Haunting of Hill House. That's where I recognized her from.
Hmm.
But
Put them
yeah, so
together when she was in Haunting of Hill House.
yeah.
I'm gonna
I
double
knew her
check, make
face
sure I
looked
got that.
familiar, but looking at her IMDb profile, that's what I remember her from. But yeah, the dad, Joe Crest, I recognized him. I couldn't quite place where from, but he just had that very familiar kind of father-like type role of uh almost kind of like an absent father or like a more quiet father because he's there, but he's not very stern. And so I figured out what we knew him from was Stranger Things. He's been in 20 episodes of that, which is quite a bit. So yeah, some very good casting for this film for sure.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty exciting. Let's see. Let's go into spoilers. So, we're gonna go ahead and transition. We're gonna talk about what actually happened in the movie. So hopefully you've had enough time to click away if you want to. This movie, like I said, opens up with telling the creature side of the story. We never get a name, I don't believe. I mean, he's even called the creature in IMDb.
His last name is Frankenstein because she like does a wax
Oh,
rubbing of his
right.
tombstone, but what his first name is, I don't remember
I want
seeing
to say it
that.
was Ed. I could be crazy, but I thought I remember seeing hers do the Ed or whatever. Um, beside the
Possible.
point. So we find out, that he used to be like a pianist back in the day, and he was involved with music, and I guess he died without marrying or anything like that. And so we get that small little quick backstory, and then we go to Lisa, and she's kind of a loner. We find out that her mother was murdered when she was younger, probably when she didn't seem too much younger in that flashback, but I want to say like maybe early teenage years. I don't what age did you pick up on?
Well, what age do you think she is currently in the film?
Currently, I would say like
I'm assuming 18, a senior in high school. I know she's in high school.
yeah, I guess so. I feel like like all the actors and actresses look older than what high schoolers really look like. Um,
Yeah,
I
so
don't
I
know
I think
Hollywood.
this happened maybe when she was like 16 or something like that that her mom had died because her dad remarried only like 6 to 9 months after the fact.
Okay, so just to clarify, her dad in present time was her dad before, like that was her
Yes.
biological dad, and so her new
Yes.
sister was a stepsister.
Yes.
Okay, I was really starting trying to piece this together at the movies, whether she was adopted or something. I couldn't figure that out.
It's
Um,
her actual, so Lisa's actual dad and then her stepmom Janet and her stepsister.
Gotcha. Okay, so Lisa's kind of this to herself, not super popular, in school. And so she always goes to this graveyard and she likes to do like art pieces, but there's this one that is her favorite, and it's our creature dude's grave site. And so eventually at the school there's a party that's going on, and so she goes to the party with her stepsister. Is her name Taffy or something?
Yes.
Her stepsister's name is Taffy. And so they go to this party, and we find out that there's a dude that Lisa has a crush on. Um, and Lisa, comes across as this girl that, may not be willing to take risks, drinking and stuff. And so somebody comes up to them and is like, yo, I have this drink. You guys want a sip of it? And Lisa decides to be, I think, tries to show off in front of the guy that she's trying to impress. And she drinks a whole bunch of this thing. And it really sends her for a loop. Like she is messed up. But while this is all happening, there's a big storm that is brewing, and a big lightning storm. And supposedly the storm did some lightning stuff that awoke our Frankenstein friend, the creature. And so I think it's like a day or two later, maybe it was the next day. Lisa is at home by herself. The rest of her family went out and about, and there's some pounding on the door. She is hesitant because we know that, in the past when her and her mom were home alone, someone came in to kill her. Um, but turns out it's the creature that's trying to find her. And the creature knows where to find her because Lisa left like a piece of jewelry on his gravesite that was from her mom. I thought this was weird. She said, it's too grim for me to wear this, so I'm going to give it to you. And I'm thinking, like, it's pretty messed up that you're giving some random dead guy your mom's stuff. Like, is that really more grim than you wearing it? Um, but I digress. That was just my thoughts during the movie.
It was
So
odd, but she's an odd person.
she's a very odd person. Uh, so yeah, so he shows up, and she doesn't really know what to do. He's, completely dirty. He's tracking mud in the house. She's trying to take random things that her stepmom, really enjoys, like precious moments, and chucking them at him, and so they're all breaking. Uh, he's falling apart, like worms and bugs and crap is falling on the floor.
He
But
can't
basic,
talk other than grunts and groans.
yeah, all he can do is talk, grunt, and groan the whole movie. And so she's trying to, figure out who this dude is. He eventually shows her the
The
thing that
rosary.
left him, and so that's how she knows who he is. Um, trying to make sure I remember all the right order of things, but uh, just to backtrack a little bit, because there's one thing that's important in this movie that I forgot to mention. Lisa and her sister use this weird tanning booth thing out in their backyard that like has some really bad short-circuiting issues. To the point where if you try to go tanning in this tanning bed, you are really likely to get shocked. And so that's kind of her way of being able to bring more and more life to this creature dude. And so what we find out about the creature is that he has some issues. He can't hear very well. Obviously, he can't talk. Trying to think.
It's missing
There's
a
one.
hand.
Oh yeah, he's missing a hand. That's the one I was trying to think of. Okay, so what's going on here is uh, basically they want to get him these body parts, and this is where the film really started to make me go, what the heck is going on here? So we really find out that there's a tension between Lisa and the stepmom. Uh, the stepmom really seems to not really like Lisa. Like, I would say borderline hates her, like as if she was baggage that came with her dad. And so, in recognizing this, the creature has an axe and decides to kill the stepmother. The stepmother seemed very confrontational with Lisa at one point, and so he comes out and he kills her. And what does he do? He cuts off her ear so that he can have her ear. And so he cuts off the stepmother's ear. Lisa later on has to stitch it to his face. And
Which
then,
she's a part-time seamstress, so she knows her way around a needle and thread.
this is true. And to like solidify the ear to his body, he has to go in the tanning bed and she cranks it up. And then, it's kind of like the press of finalizing some stuff for him. So he now has an ear. And every time that he gets in there and he, gets zapped, he looks a little more and more human like he hasn't just come out of a dirt hole. So that's kind of, you can see in my picture, he looks a little bit more humane as opposed to like the creature from the Black Lagoon that he looked like in the beginning. So he does get that progressive. Did you want to cover what happens next?
Sure. So at this point, he's still missing it. He's got an ear now, and it's kind of funny because the ear has the stepmom's earring in it the whole time that never gets taken out. So you can kind of remember that that's her ear. Um, people kind of guess the mom was supposed to be at like a conference, so she's supposed to be gone for a few days, but eventually she doesn't return. So things get kind of weird around town. People are wondering why she's missing. Uh, but he's also missing a hand still. And at that party that Lisa had went to where she got really messed up and like unintentionally super drugged, there was a guy that had tried to put the moves on her that she really wasn't a fan of and wasn't wanting to have any part of it. So she pretends that she likes this kid to kind of lure him out to that graveyard where Frankenstein winds up chopping his hand off. And I thought this was so funny because the guy was like, "Well, don't you want to hold my hand as they're walking to the graveyard?" She goes, "Oh, I will, just in a little bit." And so they chop the hand off and she grabs it. And she goes, "See, I told you I'd hold your hand." And it's chopped off. It's not even on his hand, on his body anymore. I thought that was hilarious. Um, so yeah, so they go through that process again of, stitching it to him, using the tanning bed to get it back to where he can use it. Now that he's got both hands, he shows her that he can use the piano and stuff. And she keeps kind of using him as someone to discuss all her thoughts and feelings with, because as somebody who can't talk, he makes a really good listener, right? Because all he can do is basically agree with whatever she's saying with by grunting. So she really likes this guy at school, and you can tell he's kind of bothered by it because he misses the person that he used to love and wants kind of a love interest too. There's a couple points in the film where he cries a little bit or gets a little teary because he's sad, which apparently his tears smelled like so awfully rotten. She was like shoving a pillow in his face because she just couldn't stand the smell of his tears anymore. So that was kind of another funny moment, at least for me it was. So now we're at the point where there's two dead people, right? Like things are getting a little out of control. Like, all right, you got what you needed. Let's call it. It's good. It's fine. Well, she's really stuck on the idea of you died when you were really young. I don't want to, life is short. We don't know when we're going to go. I don't want to die a virgin. So let's kind of make some things happen. I want to go get that taken care of with the guy at school that I really like. So she cuts class to go to that guy's house because she realized that he had cut class earlier that day. And so she goes to that guy's house, and Frankenstein is the one who drove her there, I think in the stepmom's car. Um,
Yeah,
which
so what happens there is when she's at school, she gets called to the principal's office because they want to investigate, these deaths and what's going on. And the girl that gave her not the drink, the drink in the beginning of the movie, she was saying like, "Oh, well, I think she's sus. I think she's the one doing all this stuff." And basically, Lisa gets fed up with the cops trying to accuse her of all these things, and so she just bursts out and leaves the school.
yeah. So yeah, she goes to that guy's house to try to take care of business, so to speak. And who does she find there is her stepsister, who had been really nice to her this whole film. And even though the stepmom was a jerk, the stepsister was actually really nice and sweet and loving, like basically the perfect sister. Um, until she finds her in bed with the guy that she likes, right? And so it's kind of like, hey, you betrayed me. You acted like you were trying to protect me from him, but really it's just that you wanted to keep him for yourself. Uh, so our Frankenstein guy, he comes in and he still has his axe, and he winds up chopping off the guy's undercarriage, we'll say. Which kind of seemed like a revenge type of thing, like chopped off the mom's ear because she didn't listen, chopped off the guy's hand because he was trying to touch things he shouldn't, chopped off the guy's undercarriage because he was trying to use it with somebody that didn't necessarily line up with what Lisa had wanted, right? So that's kind of what it seemed like at first. Um, but come to find out, Lisa then is like, well, hey, Frankenstein dude, you've done this before. Why don't why don't we do that activity together? Um, so then he explains why he took the guy's undercarriage, because just like the hand, he needed more usable parts, we'll say. So then they take care of that the same way that they took care of the hand and the ear, stitching in the tanning bed and all that. So now he's good to go. He's got all his parts. They take care of business, and they kind of realize that they, in some weird, grim way, are the ones that, like you're the one for me. You love me. I love you. Nobody else understands us. Things are going crazy. We can't just keep killing people. People are gonna find out and stuff. And so they kind of almost do not so much Romeo and Juliet, because they know they're doing this together, but she gets in the tanning booth and has him crank it up to like the max setting. So it sparks so much it catches on fire, and she slips him this little note. And so he reads it as she's catching on fire and stuff. And it basically says, "Death is temporary, love is forever." So we kind of fast forward a little bit, you see everything's on fire. They're very clearly getting burned to death, even though he's already dead. So we fast forward, I don't know, like 6 months or something like that, I think is what it was. And so it's Lisa's dad and Lisa's stepsister, right? 'Cause stepmom's dead, so she's gone. And they're visiting Lisa's grave, and they think it's really weird that somebody's leaving flowers there, like maybe it's some sick admirer or something like that. And her sister notices a really weird engraving on the tombstone that says "beloved wife," which obviously they have no memory of her being married or anything. She was still in high school. Like, what the heck is that about? And so then we get a little scene of the Frankenstein guy sitting on a park bench, and he's reading this poetry. I'm sure it was some famous reading or script or something. I don't know what it was. Some sort of like olden days play or something like that. It reminded me of like Shakespeare times, but I don't know who it was or what it was. But he's reading this to somebody on the park bench, and you see this girl laying in his lap that's she looks like a recovering burn victim. It's very obvious that it's Lisa, so they found a way to get her to come back to life, much like he came back to life, except at this point, he is now talking fluidly. He looks completely normal, like he doesn't look like he's been dead at all ever. And so now it's kind of like, all right, now we need to start the process over again with her. And that's the end of the film.
See, I thought that was like an afterlife scene, like they were in heaven or something.
I don't think so, because that was the same park bench that she had sat in earlier in the movie.
Oh, I don't know. Uh, I didn't put together much of the ending of the film. Uh, there is one other thing that I do want to talk about in this review. Uh, I know we don't normally talk about, pretty out there things, but there's something. So watching this movie with how much gore that was going on, and a lot of the things that they were talking about and showing, I was a little surprised that it was a PG-13 film, because I feel like, I feel like kids that are younger than 13 would probably go see this movie with their parent. And there's a lot of stuff in this movie where I'm just like, this stuff is weird.
Kids
So
under 13 don't want love stories like this.
I'm just saying, when I was 10 or 12, I went and saw PG-13 movies with my dad.
I understand that, but this type of love story is not really marketed for kids.
I don't know. What I'm saying is, at least from the preview, I didn't get that it was, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna tell you. So Lisa, when Lisa has this creature dude, put away in her room, he eventually is like going through some of her stuff, and he finds a vibrator, and so she, is trying to, tell him, no, it's a really good back massager, it's great. And so there's a lot of this weird stuff where we as an audience know what that thing is, but they're being very comical with it because there's a scene where they're laying in bed and, he's massaging her back with it. And then eventually she's like, there's other usages for that thing. And it's just like, wow, we are really going there, I suppose. I mean, I just thought it was funny how crude they actually did get with this movie on top of the gore. So I feel like they really pushed as much as they could with that PG-13 rating. And I just think, if younger kids end up going to see this with their parents, the parents might be kind of like, whoa, what movie did I take you to? Kind of a thing. But
I personally don't see any parents taking their kids to see this movie. I don't think it was marketed that way at all. I understand what you're saying about it being very adult topics, but at the same time, they don't show anything. That scene that you were talking about doesn't go any further than that because you, as the audience, if you know, you know. And if you don't, I guess it's just something that goes over your head because they don't show anything with that. Um,
yeah, but I will
and in
say
terms of a
that
lot of gore and stuff, there's really not that much blood.
though, the scene where they go to actually have sex, like she gets on top of him, and then it cuts to an animated scene of rocket ships and stuff because everybody says, it's like a rocket is going off. So like I picked up on that, but I mean there's subtle hints of what is actually going on, and if a kid that's like 10 or 12 goes, they've already gone through that education stuff. So I don't know. I'm just saying that I'm surprised how much was in it. I wasn't expecting it, needless to say. But
I
that's
think
kind of
it's
like
I think it's that unexpectedness and the fact that they reached that far for those different topics. That's what I think pushed it above average, in my opinion.
I would say that's what kept my interest. I don't know if it would, in my opinion, I don't think it necessarily pushed it above average. But anyways, so that is our movie discussion on Lisa Frankenstein. Again, I gave it a 4 and Sarah gave it a 6. So kind of, you know, take what you want from that. I believe it's probably more of a streaming movie, but again, with the time of the year, I can definitely see a lot of people going out to see this for Valentine's Day. Um, you could go see this movie first or second, and then go see Madam Web, because that's also coming out. We're gonna have a video on that next week as well. So if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you are notified when more of our movie discussions drop, including Madam Web. Drop us a like if you liked the video, and drop us a comment letting us know what your thoughts were on Lisa Frankenstein, if you plan to go, and what were some of your favorite uh, parts of the movie, not the body parts. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.